3. Yay! That's how excited I want you to be. Because this is a new opportunity. Whatever happened in 2022 is back in 2022, right? And the only place that your past lives is in your mind. And you know what I love to do? I love to help you shift your mindset in order to win. So answer this question. Have you ever felt like a phony, like a fake, like you had the capabilities of doing something, but you didn't do it for whatever reason? You just didn't do it. And you know you set yourself back many, many years. Well, what if I told you that this show is going to position you to allow your latter day to be your greater day? If that is you, what I want you to do is put yes in the comment section. You are here with me, Dolores Jones, the comeback coach. I love to show you how to bounce back better than before in your life and wherever else things are happening to you. Some of you may remember me as the comeback coach on CBS here in Kansas City, and I'm live today, and I have a very special guest in the studio for Finally Free, my podcast and video. Isn't this great? Don't be afraid to try something new in 2023. All right, so let me bring you up close and personal. Make sure that you like and share the video. I have a very special guest with me today, and it's really a special moment for me as well, because it's, you know, sometimes you go on through your life and you wonder and you wonder and you wonder if you're on the right path. And I remember graduating from Mizzou, the journalism school, and I just set myself out. I think it was 1994. Woo, that's a long time ago. And all I wanted to do was to be, you know, a journalist and position myself like Oprah Winfrey did and become a talk show host. And when I started out here in Kansas City, let's just say it was horrible. And I remember telling God, I said, listen, he said these things to me after I left the TV station in tears. I wasn't a fit. Sometimes you're not a fit. It might be your dream, but you're not a fit at that time. And I heard these words as I was driving down I-35 North, feeling defeated and broken. These were the words. I gave you what you wanted, Dolores. Now let me give you what you need. And I became a substitute teacher in the Kansas City, Missouri School District. And I was assigned to a school called East High School. I remember saying this, God, ain't nobody gonna discover me in this school with these bad kids. So I was reluctant to even take on that assignment. But today, let me tell you, I am so happy that I did. Let me bring on my special guests right now. You all right? Mm-hmm. Joining me live right now in living color is the one and only Catrice Johnson. Hi, Catrice.
Hello. I am
when we
so glad to be here.
When we first met, you were 16 years old.
I was 16 and a half, yes.
16, that's it. Mm-hmm. And I was 23 and angry because I didn't want to come to the school with the high school students.
Wow.
But as years have gone on, I think the last time I saw you, in fact, was when Stedman Graham was in town in Kansas City. He was in Kansas City, and we both showed up to that event. And I remember him calling you out of the audience. Do you remember that? Yes,
I do remember that.
He called you out of the audience and said to you, "Please explain
what we just learned."
That's
right.
Now, Stedman Graham, for some people, they just know him as Oprah's man,
right?
But Stedman Graham is actually a very powerful man in his own right. He's a social worker as well. But he wrote a book called "You Can Make It Happen." And for him to ask you to stand in front of all of those people, how many years ago was that?
That was in 2017, October of 2017, on one of my trips back here to Kansas City.
Wow.
And I had just heard about it. And I said, hey, I got to go hear Stedman Graham. I didn't know he was going to be in town. Of course, I hadn't been here.
Right.
And someone said, hey, yes, Stedman Graham's in town. Do you want to hear him? As a matter of fact, one of my friends who's in law called and said, hey, he's here. Do you want to hear him? I said, yes, I do.
Yeah.
And he was talking about things like identity and self-esteem and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I was so impacted because that's my conversation. That's my conversation. So I was all ears. And so when he, at the end of class, just out of nowhere, picked me to summarize the session, I was absolutely honored and ready. I was ready because I practiced that speech, that type of talking.
Right.
I practiced that in my own life, so I was ready. And he was like, "Whoa!" He said, "You can't teach that." He said, "As a matter of fact, I just watched this video. It's so funny. I just watched this video this week." He said, "You can't teach that." He said, "You have to have that on the inside of you already." And I thought that was a pretty high compliment coming from him.
Well, yeah. And I recorded that.
You recorded that moment. You said,
and
I'm
sent
so
it to
glad
you.
you captured that moment.
Yes.
I've never posted it because I wanted to get his approval first.
Oh, really?
Before doing so, I did.
Okay.
But I'll post it now. I mean, he never said anything one way or the other, and so I would post it now.
Okay. So I'm just trying to make sure we are together. We are together here. Okay. And your peeps are watching?
Honestly.
And here's the thing. It is live, and so there will be a link for anybody to watch it. Also, got to say hello to my YouTube people at Dolores Jones TV. Hey, y'all, how y'all doing? And Facebook, my faithful followers and my friends. The topic today is how to position yourself for success in 2013. Now, if we go back, my God, how many years was that? 1995, 94? You were 16 years
96.
old? 96. I was 23. I was married. I was lost. I was confused. And the last thing I wanted was to work with a classroom full of children. And I really didn't feel like I could offer you anything because I was so young. But during that time, and I think I was only with you for about a year as a teacher, you said that there was something that I told you. Could you help me understand what it was, or to recall what I told you?
Oh, I clearly
changed
recall.
Your life?
Absolutely. I clearly recall it was one of the most challenging years of my then very young life.
Okay.
It was a very pivotal year, very life-changing year for me. And as I'm sitting there and I'm grappling with all that I have to deal with, being in a foster home, wondering where my biological parents are. How come they're not coming to help me? I was struggling so bad. And my foster mother, God bless her and rest her soul, she had a lot of children in this house, this one house. There were over 20 of us in there. One of my siblings said, "Girl, do you know there were 28 of us?" And I said, "No." And she said, "It was that." I said, "It was that many?" She said, "Girl." And so when I tell you we had a lot, there was a lot. It was a lot. It took a lot to survive that environment. And I wondered where my parents were. So I was grappling with the emotions and the weight of that. And I remember we were in the computer lab that day, and Mrs. Jones, I went back into student mode. Miss Jones said to me, after she heard all of my stuff, I was really just spilling out my soul to her at that time. And she said, "Write a letter to yourself." And she said, "Just write a letter to yourself while you're in this space right now." And that was so powerful to me. I did. I went home and I didn't even go home. Actually, I wrote the letter right there on the computer. I typed it up. I don't know where that letter is today, but I wish I had it. But anyway, that letter just talked about my commitment to myself, how I was committed to surviving, how I was committed to thriving. I was committed to making decisions for myself. Excuse me. And I would go on to that letter actually gave me, it opened up something for me. It gave me the courage and the strength to leave the foster home. And before that, I had been there as long as I had been there because of, one, my parents didn't really come back for me the way that I thought they were going to come. My biological parents did not. And I had a level of loyalty to my foster mother. I'm a person that, and my friends will tell you even now, I'm really huge on loyalty. And so those that I'm loyal to, I'm extremely loyal to you. I will go through the fire and through the flood for the people that I'm loyal to. And I had a great respect for her. I didn't always understand her, my foster mother. I didn't always, and I'll admit that I didn't always understand her, didn't always understand her why, but I'm so glad she was there as she was there.
Wow. Well, I'm going to hold back my tears because I'm not getting ready to do it right now because I want y'all to meet Tegan. This is Tegan. Y'all like Tegan? Hello, Tegan, baby. Hello, Tegan.
Oh, Tegan.
So yeah, this is a new year, new look. I'm bald sometimes, but hey, honey, let's just play house. Okay, so I'm just going to be myself. When it's interesting that sometimes when you're in a place or space that you think God does not hear you, that you can give some information to someone that will change their lives at a crossroad. And so you were at a crossroad, and I heard you say when I told you or suggested to write yourself a letter. Do you remember anything within the letter that you said that is now manifested in your life?
That about me making decisions for myself. I was in the place of struggling with whether to stay in the foster home. I knew nothing about living anywhere else. I'd never lived anywhere else. My foster mother and my oldest foster sister picked me up from the hospital at 3 days old. They picked me up at 3 days old. And I didn't know anything else. I didn't know anyone else like that. And the reality is that my birth family was not that reliable. To me, I had only seen my birth mother a certain amount of times before I turned 18. So I had not really a lot of confidence. I had more hope than confidence,
Was it seeing your desire on paper? Is that something that really?
Well, I think that because things are multi-level and multi-layered, I do think that there's a layer of you know it within you. There's a resounding internal conversation about what you desire, and then to have that second layer of it's out of me, it's no longer stuck in me, and I can talk all day about that. But it's in me, but now I write it, and now it's outside of me, and therefore it connects with something on the outside.
Well, I firstly am grateful to God that at that time in your life, I was there.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah, and now I look back and I'm like, okay, God, I'm glad I listened to you.
Well, it's absolutely awesome and amazing that sometimes when we're traversing some of the toughest seasons of our lives, that we still have substance to pour into other people's lives. And so even though you were in a place where you didn't want to be, you were in a place where God needed you to be to get a message to myself. And I'm sure to other students as well.
Wow.
But that message definitely crystallized, and it writing was right up my alley. I had written letters to myself before in my journals and stuff like that. I've written letters to God all the time.
But it was that one letter.
But that particular letter gave me a different level of courage.
Well, I want to appreciate you for even doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Because some people will ask for help and then they don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
You did the work. And let's speak about your writing skills, because the first time I saw you, well, let's see, you said Stedman Graham was here how long ago?
17.
Okay. And then prior to that, when did you release your book?
About a month earlier.
Okay. So in 2017, I heard an interview with you on it at another radio station.
Yes.
AJ Johnson, I think he was interviewing you, and I called in or something like that. And then I surprised you at your book signing, right? And your book, tell us about
my first book. I'm now on my other book. I have a goal to finish a book by the end of this month. But that particular book that I was working on at that time is called I Am the One I Am Waiting For. And what that book became was a soul dump from some of the challenges and situations that I encountered growing up in a foster home, in a situation where I didn't want to be. I hated it. It was painful. It was traumatic. It was weighty, And so, I just did a soul dump of that, and how I encountered a situation that I didn't want to be in. How I leaned what my foster mother offered me, what she could offer me.
What were some of the things she offered you?
For instance, we can take it really basic to just something as simple as house. Just the ability to sleep somewhere, the ability, and a guarantee there were so many children there that we shared bed. shared a lot of things. And so just having that experience where, yeah, okay, so she's providing for you, she's making sure you're well fed. We were never hungry, I don't remember ever being hungry. We ate in shifts. We showered in shifts.
How many was in the house?
It was over 20. I just say over 20.
That's a lot of people.
It's just like the woman with the shoe with so many children. She didn't know what to do, that kind of thing. But she was a ruler. She ruled with an iron fist. There's no doubt about it. She ruled with an iron fist.
Let me ask you a question. And basically this is a conversation.
Okay.
I just want you to be yourself. The reason I call my show The Finally Free is because I want us to move beyond those labels, those limitations and elements of self-esteem.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned is when somebody puts a label on you, then it imprisons you because you feel like you have to live up to whatever their vision of that
absolutely
that was. And but what move? Because you said that letter, you got courage. So what was the move? What did you do
to leave
her house?
So what happened after that? There was a combination of things that occurred. That was the first thing that happened. A letter served as is the ability to say it. Say it, to acknowledge it, not only to have it on the outside, but to acknowledge it on the, not only to have it on the inside, but to have an outward acknowledgement of what you were feeling. Because after that, there was an issue at the house whereby investigators were crawling all over the house trying to find some of my siblings who had gotten into trouble. And they had, legal issues. And one of the investigators, another angel, and I'm so thankful to God who just placed these angels along my path. And I was ready to receive from all of them. I was always looking for something. I was always looking for better. I was always looking for more. I knew my life had purpose. I knew that I had a destiny. I knew that I had life assignment. I knew that I had mission. I knew that I had work. And I wondered how I was going to get to that work. And being so broken and being so bonded, in bondage, I felt, but I would meet in June or July. I want to say, no, June. It was June after school was out. I wrote the letter in school just before school was out. It became an immediate manifestation to me because the investigator came to the foster home. Our mom was going, you don't have to talk to them. Do not talk to them. You don't know what to say. You're not an adult. Stay out of adults' business, this, that, and the other. And so
what did they do? They removed you from there?
Well, no, the investigator actually, she asked if she could come in the house. I said, no. I said, my mom is not home. And she said, well, can you come out? I was like, oh, okay. So I went out. I knew I wasn't in trouble for anything. And so I did go out, and she said, do you live here? And I said, well, I do. I live here. And she began to talk to me. She said, well, do you have family? Excuse me, anywhere else? And I said, I do. I said, I have, my birth dad. He lives north of the river and this, that, and the other. She said, do you like school? I said, I love school. She said, what's your favorite thing? I said, reading, math, science. I love all of that. I said, I even like history and, and I was just having this great conversation. And I really began to open up and calm down and become off guard with the investigator. She said to me, well, north of the river, the schools are amazing. I said, really? And that was key to me because one of the things my foster mother told me is that education would be your way out. Get you an education. And you won't have to ask folks for anything. You find your own, make your own way. Make your own way.
Let me interject because I know you rescheduled your plane to be here with me. And so I just kind of want to move us a little bit further along. And be sensitive to it.
Yeah.
So after the investigator showed up at your
absolutely
your foster mom's
house, I made a
house.
Call to my birth dad.
You called your father.
I called my birth dad. I didn't know if he would come or not.
Did he come and get you?
He came and got me, and he took me to what I thought was their house, but actually he was no longer there. So again, I go from one broken home to another one, and It was crazy.
I'm
It was
sure
just
you
crazy.
had to feel a lot of emotions, like
I felt
hatred,
a blender of emotions.
depression.
It was anger. I don't know if I've ever hated anyone. But anger,
Mhm.
depression, I felt so misunderstood.
Yeah.
I felt very injured. As a kid, I carried a lot of pain in my body. It was a lot. It was a whole blender of stuff going on, and I knew that I needed to talk to a counselor. I knew I needed to talk.
Did you ever talk to a counselor?
Absolutely, I talked to
Oh, really?
therapists.
Pretty
Even
quickly?
How
How old were you?
My first was because in high school. In high school.
So when I
And,
met you, you were, was it later after you were 16?
No. Not at the foster home. I only talked to the therapist that showed up
So where did you start living after the foster home?
north of the river
Where?
with my dad's wife.
Oh,
My dad's wife and her daughters.
and was that a healthy situation for you?
it was an interesting situation. Mhm.
So then
Mhm.
you started
Mhm.
taking your education. You took your education serious
Very
when you were with
seriously.
me.
And
I mean,
so
I saw that.
it was education for me was like work.
Mhm.
I worked my school career as if it was all I had. And I meant business going to school. I did not have time to play.
Right. And I want to appreciate you for that. Do you remember going to the TV stations? I took you out to the TV stations. You did a newspaper.
I remember
and,
newspaper,
and,
yeah.
And you had your picture with it too.
Oh,
And
really?
I probably still have that somewhere.
Oh my God.
I know, right?
That's so cool.
So the mother, your
Mhm.
your father's wife,
Yes.
took you in.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
For about just almost long enough. Well, almost long enough to finish high school.
Okay, then what happened?
Then I went off to college.
You said almost long enough to finish high school.
Mhm.
But here's the question, because right now I'm a high school English teacher.
Yep.
Let me tell you something.
Mhm.
The children are very different.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they're different as much as, because I spent some time subbing, and what I understand is that there is a connection gap.
Okay.
In as much as there is a data gap in society between those that are underserved and those that are very well served. I think that there is a connection gap. When I go into schools and talk to students, what they are wanting are the things that we should be giving, which is connection.
Okay.
It's connection.
So
Mhm.
that's a whole nother show.
It is.
Okay.
It totally is.
Because I've
Yeah.
been cussed out at
Yeah.
school more than I care to.
Kids are hurting. They are hurting.
I know they are,
big time.
but that level of disrespect
Mhm.
just blindsided me, and so I
Yeah.
needed to. There's my church fan, because you know I'm 52 now, girl. I'm hot flashing.
I
okay?
was so. Can I tell a quick story
Yeah,
real
you
quick?
can.
So I'm subbing at a school, and this kid says to me, now I make my class fun when I was subbing. You know, I'm so fun,
Mhm.
and I'm like the best sub, right? And the
Yeah.
students knew that.
Yeah.
So I'm going around the class doing my little icebreaker with everybody. And he's feeling himself because I've relaxed everybody. This is my thing. It's my way of relaxing everybody. So he's feeling himself. He said, I got a knock joke for you. And I said, yes, Pam.
Yeah,
Kids
kids
are
are
hurting.
hurting. We can
Yeah.
see, let me say this. As you add your comments to this conversation, which is great, we can see your comments in the live. So we can answer any questions for
Yes.
myself or for Catrice. And
Absolutely.
let me plug this real quick. You're listening to Finally Free with me, Dolores Jones, your host and your comeback coach. You know, it's all about showing you how to bounce back better than before and going beyond those labels and those limitations. We're into 2023. And I don't know about you, but they have found that resolutions don't work. They just don't. So what does work is when you plan on being intentional. So this is the very first interview of the year for me, and I'm so excited to be sitting here with a student of mine, a former high school student of mine. She was 16 years old and I was 23,
Mhm.
and not wanting to go to the school. And here you are talking about you want to go into the school. Catrice
Yes.
Johnson, and we'll
Yes.
talk more into get you to where she is today. Because
Yes.
when I talk about
Yeah.
how to position yourself for success
Mhm.
in 2013,
Mhm.
you didn't play. You had the book.
I had the book.
I Am Who I Was looking
2017.
for. What was the key point of your book?
The key point
The
was
takeaway.
what happened to me at 16 when I decided that I was no longer waiting for my birth parents to come and retrieve me from the foster home.
Okay.
And I said within myself, I am the one that I am waiting for.
What
I
did you
was
mean by that?
literally waiting for them. I don't think I even knew what I meant. but I knew what I meant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So what I meant is that the answers are up to me. It's me and God.
Your
It
decision.
is me and God.
Mhm.
And by that time, now I was a kid that didn't have to church growing up.
Okay.
But by the time I was 16, I had a wonderful relationship with my God, that I still enjoy to this day. I attribute every ounce of my success to God and his ability, energy, the might, the determination, the drive, the inability to be broken, the will to triumph.
So basically, you're saying that I'm the one that I was waiting for.
I'm the one.
You're the person that has to make the decisions.
I meant that
you're the person that has to decide to live.
You
or die.
have to do that.
Okay.
You have to make that decision. If my birth parents did nothing but drop me off in the earth, that's enough.
Now, see that part right there. Now, let me say this to you, because a lot of people, I too, have struggled with the imposter syndrome. And part of it is because sometimes we're born into this world, like you said, and you were 3 years old when they
3 days.
3 days old.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Well, I was 5 years old when my mother passed away of a heroin overdose. She was 21 years old, Catrice. She was also a college student. She was at Kansas City, Kansas Community College, and she was a pre-education major. My mother was going to be a teacher. My grandmother, who raised me, was a teacher for 40 years. Okay. So some of the commonalities with you and I are faith and education. Faith and education. And we both were hurting. Whenever I would show up at the TV station for Better Kansas City, I would have anxiety attacks like you would not believe. Because I was taking the little girl in me with me everywhere I went. It was Dee Dee, the little girl who by 10 I was molested by a babysitter.
Right.
And I never talked about that until I was like 30 something years old. When I met you, I was freshly married at 23. He was about 32. And what you all did not know is one day I had planned to jump out the window of the apartment complex because I had just graduated from college.
Okay.
And I felt like I had just thrown my life away. And then, although now we appreciate the fact that I was at the school and you took that information that I gave you, I felt like such a failure. I felt like such a failure.
Got it. Yeah.
When you think in terms of feeling like a failure or feeling like you were shortchanged, because some of us feel like, well, my mama would have been there, my daddy would have been there, gone through that. So when you start to feel shortchanged, give me one of those moments where you almost, everybody's felt the urge to quit. Give us one of those moments, because you have come a long way, young lady.
Oh gosh. Let me tell you, as I was figuring it out, saying that to myself that I'm the one I'm waiting for launched me into a whole nother level of figuring it out. Life is figure outable, and let me tell you, every time I face something, I would think, God, this is the big one. This is the big one. And I'm telling you, it would be God giving me the courage and just pushing me, really pushing me. And not only that, God sent people. This is how much God loves us. He sends people to us, even in business, even in success. He sends people to us that open doors to us, that open doors for us, that open up opportunities, that open up ways of understanding and knowing and being. God loves people and he loves you. And so at the end of the day, people like to separate God from success. I don't, because I know too much.
Okay.
I know that I wouldn't have nothing, not one thing
without God.
Not even the soundness of mind to survive what I survived with the soundness of mind. And I want to lash out every time I talk about this to some, and all of that stuff. I don't go through that. I really leaned into my process. You feel the fear and you do it. You feel the anger and you know what? You're honest about it.
Listen, let me tell you
you're
something.
honest about it. You have to be honest.
You came
about
down
where
my
you
street.
Are.
You came down my street.
Yeah.
Because I learned you can either get even or you can get ahead.
Boom. Boom. That's good. That's the truth bomb.
Because you can't do both of them.
That's the truth bomb.
And both of us had a right to be angry, to be pissed off. And what is it? Pamela McCrae, she said she was waiting on herself and thought it was her parents. God gives us tools to save ourselves.
And I use
those tools.
That's
and we're going to get into some of those tools.
So you were saying that you can be angry, you can get ahead.
Yes, you can get even.
Get even.
Or you can get ahead.
Okay.
Now, I listened to one of the interviews you did with Young Man. I think his show is called The Greatest, the best talk show ever or something.
Okay.
Listen to me. One thing I do know is you have to be teachable, and I don't care how old you are.
Yes.
I watched that interview of you almost 10 times.
Mm.
And each time I watched it,
Mhm.
I took notes.
Mhm.
Okay. That was just, it was just to see how you have evolved.
Mm.
And let's talk about this vocabulary real fast. Because you said, I heard you saying
Yes.
words on this interview that I didn't even know. I was like, wait a minute. Well, how do you spell that word right there?
I get that. I get that a lot.
Let's talk about the vocabulary, because this is
Well-
one thing that Les Brown, his mentor, said to him. He said, when you open your mouth, you tell people who you are.
Mm.
So we know that you're proficient, you're prolific. How did you do all of that? Where did this vocabulary come from?
The vocabulary came from times in the foster home. One of the things our foster mom provided, she provided books, books and books and books, encyclopedias, dictionaries, the atlas. Anything we could get our hands on.
Wow.
I read incessantly as a kid. I was a top reader in my classes. And one of the things that I love, and I still do it, I get the dictionary word of the day. And so I go look at it and, just kind of go through that whole thing. But I read the dictionary like it was reading Facebook. You know how people spend hours in Facebook?
Yes.
I spend hours, and I could do this for hours.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I could do that for hours. I could still do that I'm serious. It's a longing. I am in love with language and linguistics. Words are literally the window to how we are, to our status. Words are the window to our lives. The Bible even says life and death are in the power of the tongue. And so I wanted to say words. I knew as a kid, my foster mother put that in me. She said, you're going to be my communicator. I didn't even want to talk.
Well, you sound like Maya Angelou, who after she was raped.
Correct.
And told that she had been raped, the man ended up dead. She thought her words killed him.
Yes.
But you and I both know that we can't hold on to what somebody else did to us. Those were their choices. And if God gives us another day, since God has given us another day, then it is up to us, as you figured.
And not only that, the power of transformation and what that, let me break that down, because we say these big words all the time. Transformation is such a sexy word, but the process is ugly.
It is real ugly.
Transformation is indeed sexy. It is appealing. It is appalling in some cases. You're looking at a transformation right now live. I am transformed. But on the way to transformation, I had to go through what's called the process. The process was ugly. I stayed in seasons of underneath or mediocre and average before I got to excelling. Not because I wanted to be there all the time. It was just my time to go through sometimes. I had to learn some things along the way. I had to grow through other things. I had to become Catrice so that I could absolutely be here today to empower and impact other people's lives. I understood my purpose because I was in search of it as a very young child.
Did you ever try relationships?
Of course.
Because girls, let's talk about that. Because right now, the number of young women who are, dying.
Yes, it is staggering.
They're called being deleted at the hands of these guys that they believe either one, they can help or they can help them. So talk about that piece
right there. It is staggering. And listen, being in relationships is an amazing thing. It really is. We are created for interdependence. I don't believe in self-made people.
Okay.
I cringe when I hear someone describe themselves or someone else as self-made. That is one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves. I'm not self-made. I am propelled, through my efforts, through the things that I have to do. I have to do the work. There is no secret about it. I have to do the work. You have to do the work. But check this out. Different people help you. Now, when it comes down to relationships, it is important that we understand the power of relationships and sometimes the pain of relationships. And it can be really tricky and hard because when we come from brokenness, one of the things that I was really, I'm gonna stick a pin right there, because when we come from brokenness, we can begin to perpetuate a cycle of brokenness if we're not careful.
Right on.
Healing is necessary to cut off that cycle and implement a new cycle. Healing is necessary. You cannot, listen, you're broken. Sometimes it's okay to be broken and single.
But you know what?
It's okay to be broken and alone.
The process of letting go actually creates an opportunity for a more fulfilling life. The one thing I've noticed about our conversation here is you change the narrative.
Absolutely.
And for those changing how your story is going to go, changing how you decide where you want to end up.
Absolutely.
During one of your interviews, the young man asked you a question, and you overheard, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
But you overheard someone saying you decided you wanted to become a realtor. Or is that what you call it?
Yeah,
a realtor.
A realtor.
But I do remember you said that was modeled for you from your foster mother,
and
who had you go pick up the rent checks,
helping to collect the rent.
So isn't that interesting? What we see is what is sometimes embedded. I saw my grandmother be a teacher. Yeah.
We don't live what we say all the time. We live who we are and what we see, because what we see, that's why you got to watch what your eyes eat, because what your eyes eat, your life is going to exegete or exegete. Is going to pull out. That's what it's going to pull out.
So there was something you said to him, and let me recall this correctly.
That I didn't have the skill set.
Yes. So you overheard
told,
somebody telling you.
Not overheard. It was said with intention.
What did they say, and then what did you do about it?
They said to me, and in my presence on more than one occasion, that she just doesn't have the skill set to be a top producer. She just doesn't have the skill set to sell real estate. And I laugh now, and I laughed then. I remember chuckling within myself at the time. It was almost embarrassing to hear it, not for me as much as the person who was saying it, because they should have known more than anybody, more than anyone else about my work ethic. They should have known. But
do you think they were pushing you, like sticking it personally? They just wanted to stick you personally? Okay, so they said she ain't got what it takes. What did you do about that? You know, some people feel like if they tell you you're going to be a loser, that motivates
I cannot tell you how much that energized. I was already on 10. That just literally launched me into a whole nother phase. I used to be called the helpful. I was like the helpful agent, and then I said the helper's agent, the renter's agent.
Right.
Well, boy, when I got ejected and rejected, it was so good to my soul. One thing about being in foster care and you feeling abandoned, and you feeling being in a foster home, you feeling abandoned and you feeling rejected.
Right.
It teaches you. Now you can take that. You can take that as everybody rejects you, everybody abandons you. That's not true. Not everybody abandoned me. Not everybody rejected me. I've been loved. I'm a loved soul. I am a loved soul. Not only loved for what I can do, I'm loved for who I am. There are people who call me just because I breathe air. And so you got to watch the stories that you tell yourself too. And so this is so funny. What's so funny to me is that this was told to me from a source that it was so unlikely. I didn't expect it to come from this person.
Who was? You ain't got to say.
No, I would never say.
Okay.
Because it's not important. It's not important who it was.
Why were you surprised?
What was important? I was surprised because I had a level of comfort. And because I had my loyalty there, I would never have said anything like that to them or about them.
So did you feel betrayed?
Did I feel betrayed?
Yeah.
I actually felt liberated.
How so?
I felt liberated because now I know how you feel about me. And maybe perhaps before I didn't know how you felt about me. So now we're good. We're good now. So now that just emboldened me even more, all the more. I already had the license. So I said, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm doing. I didn't pay for the class. Spent hundreds of dollars of that.
There's a word you use, unlikely. What was it?
Source.
No. When you were saying something about basically the person didn't expect you to win.
Yeah.
And you talked about being the underdog.
The underdog.
And
I love a good underdog.
And you said something about unexpected victories or
yes.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, the reality is that when you're not the chosen one, when they didn't choose you, but God chose you, right?
Right now. That's my lips. I'm giving you my lip gloss.
So sometimes we got to tune out other people choosing us or not choosing us. At the end of the day, did God choose you? Because my Bible reminded me that with God, me and God, we're the majority. That's what the book says.
That's what the book says. But what happens when you're disappointed and you're angry and you're feeling depressed?
The Bible even gives us a model there. What did David do when he was disappointed after he had just had a big win? He came back and he was facing a great loss. His camp had been looted.
Yes.
I didn't come here to preach, but I am a preacher.
But
his camp had been looted. His camp had been looted. And at the end of the day, David had to go away and encourage himself. And what David encouraged himself with is that, look, I've won before. I ain't lived a losing life. I've won before.
Get it. Now listen, when they had that, you're about to make me take
Listen, I already know.
But listen, Catrice.
Yes.
You had said to this one particular interviewer that you had survived the worst thing.
I have already.
What was the worst thing?
I have already, look, the worst things was abuse, abandonment from my parents. I had already survived the worst of the worst. Nothing that y'all can do to me is going to cut me any worse than I've already been cut.
When did you realize that?
I realized it at that moment.
That was the worst?
That's the worst that could happen. That's the worst you could do. You could take my life and it still wouldn't hurt as bad as it's already hurt in my life.
And you know what I realized after listening to you? I went back and said, what was the worst thing that could have happened to you? And I said, sitting in a church on a pew at 5 years old, looking inside of a white box at my mother's lifeless body at 5 years old.
That's right.
That was the hardest thing that I had ever done.
Yeah.
And I survived. I'm now 52. And I will say this to you. I wanted to be 21 because she was 21.
Yeah.
And I said, God, I just want to live to be 21. And then one day I woke up and I almost ended my life, Patrice, in 2014.
Absolutely.
I was on some medication. I got into a relationship with someone and he said, you don't need that stuff. So I abruptly stopped. You're never supposed to do that.
Not a good,
And here's the crazy part. I was still going on television. And because I was on TV, nobody really saw my pain. Isn't it interesting that your pain can be so invisible?
Yes.
Because you are the encourager.
I remember being so broken, yet I was able to help other people. That's why, you know, there's that quote that says broken crayons still paint, they still color, they still provide what they provide. Because when you have the substance or the seed on the inside of you, you can still produce, baby.
Listen,
so produce.
And we're producing this show right here live at the Johnson County Library.
Yes.
I'm Dolores Jones, your comeback coach, and this is the Finally Free podcast, and you're here live on my YouTube channel, Dolores Jones TV, as well as my Facebook page. Hey y'all. Instagram. We're coming out with a vengeance. See, there comes a point in your life that you can't play with it anymore.
You cannot.
You cannot say.
You cannot.
Leave me alone. You're either going to be in it to win it or you're not.
Listen.
I heard you say something about what propelled you forward is that you had a purpose. Now tell me about that. And you didn't know where you were going, but you knew you was going somewhere.
Absolutely. That's right, Pam. You can still share your umbrella even during the storm. You know, I knew
you was going somewhere.
That I was going somewhere. I knew that because God let me live. I have been chased by weird men. I've been, you know, just all this stuff. Running from them, physically running from them.
Okay.
One of the most prolific child molesters in this area. I don't even like to say his name, he came to our my bus stop one day and he was scoping me out. And one of my childhood friends who almost missed school every day, on that particular day, God had him there. He was at the bus stop that day. Had he not been at the bus stop that day, we could have been talking about a different story. So when I talk about purpose, I'm talking about the near misses, the almost. And that's why I always thank God for things that didn't happen.
Yes.
And as much as thanking him for things that did happen, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I got away from that I just didn't go through. Even with everything that I've gone through, there's still a lot of things I didn't go through. And so I'm grateful for that. But with the girth of experiences that I have gone through, God has pointed out to me that you have purpose. You don't get purpose and then you get life. Excuse me, you don't get life and then you get purpose. You get purpose before you ever get here. And so people are walking around in a daze, trying to figure out what is your purpose. Listen, I know it's there. That's for sure. I can tell you with great confidence that you have one. Nothing is created without a purpose, baby. Nothing is created without it.
What was it intended to do? So when we talk about purpose,
it is intended to serve.
What were you
at the end of the day? I was intended to connect people back to their original plans and purposes.
Okay. And you are doing that. Not only that, you're connecting people to $1 million properties.
Yes.
Let's talk about that, dear.
Yes,
now,
yes.
You said you didn't want to talk about money.
I don't want to talk
about money.
It's an amazing thing because people really do ask you, how much money did you make?
Right.
How much did you make off the deal? I'm not going to say that.
Well, here's the thing, though. I posted your, it said, and I quote, Isabella, the millionaire Cinderella.
The $1 million Cinderella.
Okay, so you put it out there.
Well, it's the deals that are closed are multi-million-dollar deals.
But here's the thing. You might get more than Jesus does because they give tithes. Sometimes when you're dealing with that money,
I'll never be able to get more than Jesus gave his life.
What I'm saying is on the commission. Commission is more than 10%. And we don't even have to do the factors. Here's the thing I want to know. You left Kansas City,
Missouri,
and moved to Florida.
I did.
Was that necessary?
It was necessary.
Why?
It was necessary. My time was exhausted, expired over here. It was done. And I did everything at first I could to find a reason to stay. But the more I tried to find reasons to stay, the more it became more and more apparent that I needed to go.
What do you mean the reasons to stay, and why were you afraid to leave?
Because I had connections. I had the membranes of my soul were tied to this area, to this space. I know it.
Right.
I turned corners in Kansas City for years. This is my home turf, and so I knew it. And so it was what it was. And when I began to pray and ask God, because sometimes when you're in the darkest, deepest place that you can be in, the only thing you got is God. Sometimes people will turn their back on you in those moments. And guess what? You cannot be delivered from your process all the time. Sometimes the only way out is through. So don't hold it against people that they turn their back against you. They only have a certain capacity. People only have a certain capacity. Yes, some people will go with you all the way. Some people will, but everybody is not going to go with you. Can I just say like I want to do? Everybody ain't going with you all the way.
They ain't going.
They're not going. But I do understand it's the way in which they treat you is the thing, right? And so your process is so important. It is filled with so much purpose that you have to deal with the fact that people have to turn you away. They have to, or you will stay in a position of comfort, which will leave you in a space of mediocrity.
Come through.
And so you will not live in your highest self. You'll be living in your lowest self, thinking that you're doing okay. You're doing just basic. So if you live in a basic life, God, the God I serve is flamboyant.
Big.
He created all of this. And you're going to think God is some Millie Mouse, God ain't never been broke. He ain't never been without. He ain't never been scarce. God does not run out. He doesn't run out. He don't run out of resources. He don't run out of love. He does not run out. So every time I got to the end, every time I got to the end of my rope, every time I got to the end of what I felt like I could do, I said, God, I need some more. This process has taught me to trust God with or without anybody. Listen, yes, I want to be married. Yes, I want a wealthy husband. Yes, I do. I sure do. And if he's not wealthy, okay, we'll talk about that. But I'm just wrong. That's what I put my order in for. But if that doesn't happen, if that never materializes, I'm not going to fall out.
Listen, you have grown leaps and bounds. Can I ask how young you are?
43.
Okay.
I am 43.
43. I met you when you were 16. Let me tell you something.
I cannot believe I'm 43.
I met you when you were 16 years old. And in between wanting to leave the foster care system. And I told you to write a letter to yourself.
Yes. Can I say this real quick?
Please do, because somebody wants to know, why did you choose Florida?
Why did I choose Florida?
Yes.
I chose Florida. The other thing, Pamela, I wanted to say real quick, it just popped into me, is that sometimes we hold our parents hostage for decisions that they were not wise enough or courageous enough to make.
Would you say that again?
Sometimes we hold our parents hostage with decisions that they were not wise enough or courageous enough to make.
How do you free them?
It's time to set them free.
How do you do that?
One of the things that I did, the thing that really set me free in that parental area is, as I was writing my book, I hit this thing because I'm writing chapters on them, and I'm like, God, I want things to be, flowy. I want things to flow, and I want to make sure I'm doing it from a pure space.
Okay.
And so what I did is I wrestled. I literally shut down. I was laughed at it this time because I shut down from writing for about 7 months to wrestle with this thing. I said, because, it was what it was. It was horrible. Okay. Horrible. But what happened one day, I was sitting on the pew at church, and the Holy Spirit gave me the right words to say. And it went something like this: please forgive me for expecting a level of relationship that God did not ordain for our lives. I repent. That's what I said.
I'm writing that down.
And I continued on. And I said, I don't know what the future holds, but I wish you well. And I never looked back.
Listen.
I've never looked back.
Listen. I know that this particular interview is coming to a close, but I don't want you to go yet.
Okay.
I don't. There are so many nuggets that you talked about, young lady. I don't even have the words to tell you how proud I am of you.
Thank you.
The word proud doesn't even do it justice. You said earlier that our kids are hurting.
Yes.
And they are. And we have to remember that kids become adults.
That's right. That are hurting. That's right.
So if we don't, and there's a topic, Catrice, called a title called Reparenting Your Inner Child.
Right. Yep.
I don't want to let you go. And I want to wrap this one, but then I want to come back for another one.
Okay.
And you let me know how much time you have.
Okay.
Listen, ladies, gents, and them and they and him and her and all of the peoples out there. My guest is Catrice Johnson. Now, Catrice, according to your bio, you've won multiple awards. Being the top seller, Caldwell Banker, the hungry agent, who doesn't want to talk about money, but makes a whole lot of money. Before we go into a whole nother show, what made you choose Florida out of Kansas City? I mean, you could have gone anywhere.
Sure. So I had a list. I developed a list of places where where I thought I wanted to go, from the East Coast to the West Coast. And Florida, I had only really been to Orlando, and I was not impressed with Orlando. I didn't like it. It was too touristy for me. I didn't like it. However, at the other point, I had a boss who I worked for, a lady who had to come to Florida for a trip, investor's trip. And when I got here, I looked, I kind of saw, I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. The sun is shining, all that. Seemed like a cool, laid-back community. The air felt better.
Where was this at?
This was in Panama City Beach, Florida. Panama City Beach, Florida. And we get into it was a lockout unit. A lockout unit has like the main hotel space over here and then the other room over there. So it's like everybody got their own room or whatever. Right. So anyway, she said, hey, can you come here for a second? Can you come here for I'm like, oh yeah, let me put my stuff down. And I'm just like, moving along. And she says, have you seen this? I said, oh yeah, I saw it. And so she said, no, come here. She said, have you seen this? And I literally stood there. I can still see it. I took a picture of this moment, but I'm standing there and I take in Panama City Beach. And I'm a nature girl. I love water and I love outside. I take in Panama City Beach, the view. and I literally inhaled and exhaled in a different way, and it felt like home immediately.
Okay.
And I knew as I left and wrapped up that weekend, I felt sad, even had tears in my eyes, thinking about going back to Kansas City. I knew my time was up in Kansas City. I knew it. Yes, I think I know Emily.
So
anyway,
she can see your comments, and we'll continue this live experience.
Okay, real quick.
Go ahead.
Real quick. So I in my choosing of Florida, this is how things start to work out. This is when you're on purpose, they work out and line up. And so all of a sudden that weekend happened. Went back to Kansas City. I had to get a job with the city of Kansas City, and I was just gonna get a job and work, and I didn't know kind of what I just needed to work. I was driving a car. Listen, I was driving a car that I had to start with a screwdriver.
What? Wait a minute.
We have to talk about that on the next show.
Yeah, the next show.
So this is the thing I did. Is 6 months later. This was in May that I went on that trip. 6 months later, not even 6 months later. It was like a few months later. She said, "What do you think about?" It was probably like three months later. So, what do you think about going to Florida and help set up an office? I said, "Huh?" I said, "Well, I'm not doing anything here, and Panama City Beach is beautiful." And so, literally, in order to force the move, I had to force myself to leave what I had known, because I knew there was another life waiting for me that I had not known. And hey, Branch, I knew there was another life waiting for me that I had never known. And I felt it was that place called home, because that's what I felt, remember, weekend. And so for my birthday, every year I give myself something.
When's your birthday?
November the 9th.
Oh, smart.
And
what did you give yourself?
For that year, I gave myself a move to Florida. And I did it for me. I had lived my life considering other people. I served other people, helped other people's organizations, churches, all of that. I've done that. I've given out. And now I had nothing left to give. I was in a place called stuck. But little by little, I will say that lady helped me. She really did. And I thank God for her. But, that was that. And that was a very interesting time in my life. So for that year, I gave myself that. And then December of that year is when I finally moved all of my things down. I did a really round the world trip in like 24 hours and dropped my clothes off, and then came back to Kansas City and kept working. And it was when my car quit in the middle of traffic.
In Kansas City?
In Kansas City.
Is that when you used the screwdriver?
It was on that car.
Put a pin, hold on. Because we got to tease them. We got to listen. So my guests who always listen to this, you have an open invitation to come to Finally Free.
Oh, thank you.
You can
thank
even
you
say,
so much.
"Can we go on your show?" I'm saying, go ahead, let's do this. So Catrice Johnson is more than just a person. You are a phenomenon. I need you to know that. One of the viewers here I'm reading, he says, E.E. Branch says, "I'm about to cry watching her flourish. I cry all the time watching her success. I remember
That's
when."
my girl. That's Em.
And
she Emily Branch.
She said that she knew when she first met you.
She did.
I'm speechless, and I'm honored to have a former high school student of mine.
And Emily pushed me. She had her own company.
So Emily, are you going to come back? Because we're getting ready to start a whole nother chapter of this show, because it's so good. We're going to come back and talk about The Worst Is Over.
Yeah.
How to experience your best in 2023. How about that? I'm Dolores Jones, the comeback coach. I definitely know people who know how to show you how to bounce back better than before. Catrice Johnson, what a pleasure, what a privilege, and an honor to have you back, my dear.
So
not just as a student, but as an extraordinary woman.
Thank you.
With a message that changes lives. Okay, y'all do that. Let's come back and you can say something to your peeps as we prepare to go on to the next thing.
Guys, I don't know where we're going. Can we go back to Facebook now?
We're going to go back to Facebook.
Okay, great. Okay, so meet us over on Facebook and we'll continue the conversation.
See, here's the thing. This is real stream. So whenever I go anywhere, it's going to be on Facebook and YouTube. Okay. So we'll do that. But you tell me where you want them to go.
All right, God. I'm going to try to get us on my Facebook page. Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Miss Jones, Miss Dolores. Dolores Jones is an amazing soul, and I'm grateful for the impact that she has had on my life. I have been spending the last few years really letting people know how grateful I am for them being in my life. I am really thankful, and I did it along the way too. But every time I think about it, yeah, somebody says stay here. Stay here where?
No, because it's a limited amount of time.
Okay, got
so
it.
All right,
right.
you just put a pin in it, honey. You can come back.
So we're coming right back?
We're coming right
okay,
back.
I'll drink some water and then
We're coming
we'll
right
come
back.
back.
Okay, call somebody.
All right.
You guys, I'll see you. You not just you guys, you amazing champions, you amazing kings and queens. Stay with me here on Dolores Jones TV as well as Facebook. Catrice Johnson will be back momentarily.